A while back, I made a video about which path would be a good pick if you were Isekaid into Star Rail. Most of you seem to enjoy that video, but I didn't get to include the rest of the paths and focus more on the main 7 we see in the game. This video is going to be part 2 of what is likely going to be a 3-part video at this point because there are so many paths. In this one, I'll cover 5 more paths and see whether any of these 5 are good choices and if there are options here that are better than the main 7. Before we dive into this topic, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. As I mentioned, in the previous video, I focused more on talking about the 7 main paths in the game, but Star Rail is littered with far more paths and far more eons. In fact, there's a total of 10 additional ones I didn't get to talk about. To avoid making this a 40-minute video essay, I'll cover 5 additional paths here and the other 5 in a future video. Now before we explore them, let me just clarify a few things. The point of this video is not to talk about the paths themselves, nor is it a deep explanation of how they work in lore, but rather just to see which would be good to resonate with if you find yourself transported into Star Rail. That means what kind of activities might you get up to, who would you be spending your time with in terms of factions, and what would the Aeon do if they decided to cast their gaze on you. It won't be an in-depth look at the path or the factions themselves, as I've covered those in separate videos before, which you should check out if you're curious. Also, the same rules apply as before. You are not the protagonist here. You are just an average person who got hit by a truck in our universe and got reincarnated into Star Rail. Let's start this list off with a path that may not seem to have any downsides, the Path of the Trailblaze. The Path of the Trailblaze is one that was born from the Aeon Akuvili when he left the world of Pegana in search of the final point of the universe, the Tree of Existence. This path is all about the journey, the adventure that awaits you in the vast sea of stars the world of Star Rail is. The Trailblaze isn't just about traversing the unknown cosmos, but also promotes the connections and friendship one gains when going through such a journey. There is only one faction that is currently aligned to this path, the Nameless. In the past, they travel alongside Akuvili, visiting each planet on their way to the fringes of the universe, but ever since his death, the Nameless have dwindled in number. The current day Nameless is a small group that the main character travels with and are made up of only a handful of people. If you were to join this group, you'd likely be a part of some great journeys, meeting all sorts of interesting people, and will be in for the adventure of a lifetime. It's a pretty good deal, to be honest. The only downside is that as an average person, and not a human who can literally summon black holes, some of these journeys may be extremely dangerous. In fact, the Nameless have had their Astral Express blown up by the God of Elation, eaten by a giant space bug, and even today they encounter Stellarons quite often, so it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. So there is some risk to being a trailblazer. Plus, you need to actually like adventuring, and if you're an introverted shut-in, then this might not be the path or group for you to join. Otherwise, it's a pretty solid choice. Speaking of AHA, let's talk about the Path of Elation next, as I saw a number of you actually chose this particular path. The Path of Elation is born from the chaotic god AHA in its search for entertainment. Resonating with this path means that all you're looking for is fun and of course the elation or satisfaction that comes from that. The faction you would most likely be affiliated with will be the Masked Fools. There are also the Mourning Actors, though you'd likely join them only after you had some time with the Masked Fools, but I'll get back to that later. As a Masked Fool, your actions will be motivated by the same goals as the Aeon of Elation, the pursuit of fun and laughter. The problem is that fun is a subjective term. To you, it might mean just watching movies, putting on a play, or maybe even just chilling with some of your friends, which you'll do a lot of given the Masked Fools actually own taverns spread out across the universe. The problem is some of their members have more extreme tastes when it comes to fun. Some members may find blowing up a planet as fun. Some might find tricking others into selling their soul for all of eternity gut-bustingly funny. So when you're associated with such extreme outliers within the same group, you might find that the rest of the universe may be wary or downright despise you. What's worse is that if you exemplify this path a little too well, AHA might turn his gaze on you. Now, for other eons, getting the gaze of a god often means you might receive their blessing or access to more of the path's powers. Nanook, for example, may give you more power to destroy things, while Yaosha might make you live longer, but Aha is not so straightforward. There might be a chance he will grant you with more power so you can have more fun, or you could end up being the subject of his fun instead. Perhaps he wants to see what you'll do if you become a half banana, half human hybrid with all your sentience intact. You never really know with him, which makes it a toss of a coin. If you were unlucky enough to be the butt of the joke, then that's when you'd consider joining the morning actors instead, who surprisingly don't even like Aha or Elation. They dislike the idea of Elation, thinking it leads one to moral ruin, but Aha, being who he is, chooses to bless them anyways because, well, he thought it would be funny. So joining the Elation as a low-rank minion may be a pretty good deal all things considered, but for you overachievers, it might be your one-way ticket to turning into a pickle or something. Next up, we have the Path of Voracity, or officially known as the Path of Nom 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 Nom. Okay, look, that joke sounded funnier in my head, just ignore it. Anyways, the Path of Voracity is all about quenching the near infinite hunger or gluttony one has. It was born when a Leviathan, a literal space dragon, wanted to eat the entirety of the universe because to this particular eon, life is but a flickering fragment destined to be returned to the darkness, i.e. their belly. This is a path you would probably want to avoid no matter who you are. There is no faction or group to follow here. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you decided to follow this path and its eon notices you, you'd probably just end up getting eaten. Plus, in order to resonate strongly with this path, you need to have a pretty ravenous and indiscriminate appetite. So I'd personally suggest to avoid this at all costs, unless you're one of those speed-eating people you see on YouTube like Matt Stoney or something. Like, how does he even eat that much? Anyways, long story short, there isn't anything to gain here unless you were already cursed with an unending hunger or something. So let's move on. Next on the list is the Path of Beauty. Now, the Path of Beauty is rather mysterious, at least for me, because I never really understood what it actually stands for. Is it related to the appreciation of anything one deems beautiful? Or is it a specific standard for what beauty means in the universe of Star Rail? I honestly don't know. I've made a video talking about this which released about a week ago where I discussed this in a bit more detail, but even then, I'll openly admit to being still 30% confused. Now, based on my own interpretation, it's a path that is born just from an appreciation of the underlying beauty of the universe. I've speculated, however, that this interpretation may no longer be in effect after the disappearance of Idrilla. Because of her disappearance, despite the path originally holding meaning in appreciation for the beauty of the universe, the factions are currently more focused on searching for Idrilla. The Knights of Beauty, for example, are actively searching the cosmos for their lost god, while the Mirror Holders are trying to rekindle humanity's view on beauty, while at the same time searching for Idrilla. So I would imagine that if you were to join either of these factions, you'd likely spend most of your time explaining a rather nebulous concept to other people while searching for a god that has gone missing. But given you were just recently Isekaid into Star Rail, I doubt you know or have seen Idrilla herself, which means it's unlikely you'd want to join these fellows on their quest given you would have little to no attachment to her at all. You could still just resonate with the path and appreciate the majesty of the universe for what it is, regardless of whether the Aeon is still around or not. So beauty seems like a neutral choice. There isn't anything that might threaten you and you're not forced to look for Idrilla, so you might call this path home if and only if you truly resonate with its concepts. The final entry we have on this list is the Path of Permanence, which is helmed by the dragon god Long. The Path of Permanence is much like that of Beauty in that we don't really understand too much about it. A long time ago, the Aeon of Permanence was said to have traveled the universe in search of the meaning to life itself. It supposedly found this answer, though we aren't told what that answer is. Because the Vidyadhara practice a rebirthing cycle, it's thought that permanence is related to the continuation of a bloodline or life itself. But again, this hasn't been confirmed in any way. Because we don't know what this path even believes in, it's hard to say whether they are a safe choice or not, but given what we've seen with the Vidyadhara, I doubt they are a dangerous faction. The positive thing about them is that the followers of permanence are actually quite spread out across the universe, so you'd likely be a part of a pretty big community and have somewhat functional immortality. The negative is that because of the way the Vidyadhara immortality works, You'd basically live the same life being reborn each time and potentially living your life all over again. This is only true, however, if we take the Vidyadhara as the permanence's only followers, which, as I mentioned, may not be the case. That covers the 5 paths that I wanted to talk about in this video. Now, with a lot of these paths, you notice that you either should avoid them outright, or some of the ones you could join has negative repercussions the deeper into them you go. That, however, doesn't make them bad choices, since again, you're not the protagonist here and functionally just an NPC level good at best. I would personally opt for the Trailblaze or Elation, with the others being a lot of work for very little reward. Plus, as I've mentioned in the previous video, even if you were Isekaid to this universe, the reality is that you don't have to only follow one path. You could actually align yourself or resonate with a multitude of them when acting in the way that fits your current mood or personality. There really isn't a wrong answer here. To add to that, there is still much we don't know about many of these paths, and those that I mentioned as bad choices could turn out to be good ones once we learn more about them. I'll cover the remaining 5 in another video or a part 3 or something in the future, but for now, that does it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you changed your mind on whichever path to resonate with after learning more about them, or would you still stick with the choices you had before? If you enjoyed watching this video, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.